In the spring of 1221, a desperate prince named Jalal ad-Din stood in the mountain passes of Afghanistan and made a decision that defied every principle of medieval warfare. Behind him lay the smoking ruins of the Mongol Empire, the wealthiest civilization in Central Asia, now reduced to mass graves and pyramids of skulls by Genghis Khan's armies. Every major city from Samarkand to Bukhara had been systematically erased, their populations slaughtered down to the last child. Jalal ad-Din's father, the Shah, had fled and died on a desolate island in the Caspian Sea, leaving his son to face the Mongol storm alone. Now, with barely 30,000 soldiers scraped together from survivors, Jalal ad-Din faced a Mongol army that had never lost a major battle. But instead of fleeing like every other commander had done, instead of keeping his cavalry mobile to match Mongol speed, Jalal ad-Din ordered something that seemed like suicide. He commanded his horsemen to dismount, to abandon their greatest advantage, and to stand in formation as foot archers alongside his infantry. What happened next would send shockwaves across the Islamic world and prove that even the unstoppable could be stopped. To understand the audacity of Jalal ad-Din's decision, you must understand what the Mongols had already done to anyone who dared resist them. The Mongol Empire in 1219 had been a superpower. Its cities were architectural marvels, with populations reaching hundreds of thousands. Its armies numbered in the hundreds of thousands, equipped with the finest weapons Persian craftsmanship could produce. When Genghis Khan sent a trade caravan to establish peaceful relations, the Quadismen governor of Otrar didn't just reject the offer. He executed the Mongol ambassadors and merchants, killing roughly 150 men. Shah Muhammad II compounded this catastrophic error by endorsing his governor's actions. Genghis Khan's response was methodical extermination. The Mongol invasion force of roughly 200,000 warriors moved with terrifying coordination, besieging multiple cities simultaneously despite being separated by hundreds of miles of desert. Samarkand, with its 400,000 inhabitants, fell in 5 days. The Mongols executed every single inhabitant except for 30,000 artisans they enslaved. Bukhara, the center of Islamic learning, was burned to ashes after its entire population was marched out to die. The brutality wasn't random violence, it was calculated terror. At Nishapur, after a Mongol prince was killed during the siege, Genghis Khan ordered the complete obliteration of the city. When it fell, the Mongols spent 6 full days killing. They didn't just kill soldiers, they methodically executed every man, woman, child, and animal in the city. The Mongols built pyramids from the severed heads, organizing them by gender. Men's skulls in one pyramid, women's in another, children's in a third. The Mongol Empire, which had taken centuries to build, was erased from existence in less than 2 years. Jalal ad-Din had watched this apocalypse consume everything he knew. He was roughly 30 years old, a prince who had been trained in warfare since childhood, but nothing could prepare anyone for what the Mongols represented. His father, the Shah, had completely collapsed psychologically when the Mongols invaded. Instead of organizing resistance, Muhammad II had fled from city to city in abject terror, abandoning his people to massacre. He eventually reached a small island in the Caspian Sea, where he died of pneumonia and despair, having literally run himself to death. Jalal ad-Din refused to follow his father's cowardly example. As the empire disintegrated, he gathered what forces he could, mostly survivors from destroyed cities, refugees who had lost everything, soldiers whose families had been murdered before their eyes. These were not professional troops. They were traumatized men driven by vengeance and the knowledge that they had absolutely nothing left to lose. Jalal ad-Din led them toward Afghanistan, hoping the mountains might slow the Mongol advance, might give him terrain advantages that could offset the enemy's superior numbers and terrifying mobility. The Mongol force pursuing him was commanded by Shigi Kutuku, one of Genghis Khan's adopted sons and a veteran commander who had participated in countless victories. His army numbered roughly 30,000 warriors, perfectly trained horse archers who had been fighting together for decades. Mongol warriors trained from childhood, learning to ride before they could walk, mastering the composite bow that could shoot arrows through armor at 200 yards. Each warrior maintained a string of horses, usually 4 or 5 mounts, allowing them to cover 100 miles in a single day by rotating between fresh horses. Their tactics were devastatingly effective. They would advance in loose formations, showering enemies with arrows while staying just out of weapon range, never committing to direct combat until the enemy formation broke. Then they would feign retreats, drawing pursuers into ambushes where the real Mongol army waited. Armies that tried to hold defensive positions would be surrounded and starved. Armies that tried to match Mongol mobility would be run into exhaustion and destroyed. It seemed impossible to defeat them. Every European, Chinese, and Islamic commander who had faced them had failed. So Jalal ad-Din developed a strategy that seemed completely insane, but might be the only possible counter. When his scouts reported the Mongol army approaching through the Parwan Valley in late 1221, Jalal ad-Din positioned his force with the mountains at his back, eliminating any possibility of retreat. Then he did something unprecedented. He ordered his cavalry to dismount. Roughly 20,000 horsemen, trained their entire lives to fight from horseback, climbed down and formed up as foot archers and infantry. They stood in dense formations, shields locked, archers behind them in ranks. Only 10,000 cavalry remained mounted, positioned on the flanks. The dismounted men were essentially transformed into a human fortress, immobile but concentrated, able to maintain sustained, accurate archery fire without worrying about controlling horses. When Shigi Kutuku arrived and saw this formation, he must have been confused. Every enemy the Mongols had faced tried to match their mobility or hide behind city walls. No one had ever deliberately given up mobility. This was either genius or suicide. Jalal ad-Din was about to find out which. The battle began with the traditional Mongol approach. Light cavalry advanced in waves, shooting arrows in massive volleys designed to break enemy formations through sheer psychological pressure. The composite bows they used could shoot 15 to 20 arrows per minute, meaning 30,000 Mongol archers could launch 500,000 arrows in the opening minutes of battle. The sound alone was described by survivors as like thunder, a continuous roar as arrows darkened the sky. Against cavalry, this tactic was devastating because horses panic under arrow fire, breaking formations. Against infantry in cities, the Mongols would simply exhaust the defenders, shooting for hours until resistance collapsed. But Jalal ad-Din's dismounted cavalry were different. These were professional warriors, men who had already survived the apocalypse of the Khwarezmian conquest, who had seen entire cities murdered, who had nothing to fear anymore. They locked their shields, absorbed the arrow storm, and maintained formation. More crucially, because they were on foot and didn't need to control horses, they could shoot back with accurate, sustained fire. A mounted archer has to shoot while moving, compensating for horse movement, making long-range accuracy difficult. A foot archer stands stable, aims carefully, shoots methodically. Jalal ad-Din's men began returning fire with disciplined volleys. For the first time in Mongol experience, their arrow tactics weren't working. The Khwarezmian formation wasn't breaking. Men were dying, yes, Arrows were finding gaps in shields, but the survivors closed ranks and kept shooting. The Mongol commander tried the standard feigned retreat tactic, pulling back cavalry units to draw the enemy into pursuit. But Jalal ad-Din had specifically ordered his men to not move under any circumstances. The dismounted troops stayed in formation, shooting at any Mongols who came within range. This was completely outside Mongol tactical doctrine. Usually, enemies either broke and ran, making them easy to massacre, or they pursued the feigned retreat into ambushes. Jalal ad-Din's army did neither. They simply stood there, a bristling wall of shields and arrows that wouldn't break and couldn't be baited. As the afternoon sun blazed overhead and both armies began to exhaust themselves, Jalal ad-Din saw his moment. The Mongols had committed fully to breaking his center, concentrating their forces in repeated charges against the immobile formation. This left their flanks exposed, stretched thin by the intensity of their assault. Jalal ad-Din signaled his 10,000 mounted cavalry, who had been waiting on the wings throughout the entire battle. These men were fresh, their horses rested, and they had watched their dismounted comrades hold against impossible odds for hours. When they charged, they hit the Mongol flanks with devastating force. The Mongols, exhausted from hours of fighting, their arrows depleted, suddenly found themselves caught between the anvil of dismounted infantry in front and the hammer of cavalry crashing into their sides. For the first time in decades of conquest, the Mongols broke. Their formations shattered. Warriors who had never experienced defeat suddenly panicked, trying to disengage and regroup. But Jalal ad-Din's cavalry gave them no space. The pursuit became a slaughter. Thousands of Mongol warriors, elite soldiers who had conquered empires, died running through mountain passes, cut down from behind or trampled by their own retreating comrades. The casualty figures tell the story of complete Mongol catastrophe. Modern estimates suggest 10,000 to 15,000 Mongol warriors were killed or scattered, a loss greater than what they suffered conquering the entire Khwarezmian Empire. News of Jalal ad-Din's victory spread across the Islamic world like wildfire. He was hailed as the first man to defeat the Mongols in open battle. Within weeks, his army grew to nearly 70,000 men, the largest force assembled against the Mongols since the war began. But Jalal ad-Din had made one fatal mistake. He had defeated a Mongol army, not Genghis Khan himself. Enraged by the defeat, Genghis Khan swore to hunt Jalal ad-Din personally and erase him from existence. The Mongol main army, 50,000 elite warriors, swept across every city that supported Jalal ad-Din, destroying them with terrifying speed. At the Indus River in late 1221, Jalal ad-Din found himself trapped, with the river behind him and the full Mongol force closing in. He tried forming his dismounted archer wall again, but this time the Mongols avoided the center entirely. They swept around both flanks with overwhelming force, completely encircling the Khwarezmian army. The formation collapsed in chaos as warriors fled toward the river in desperation. Jalal ad-Din, surrounded at the river's edge, made a desperate final decision. He spurred his horse and leapt off the 40-foot cliff into the Indus River below, still wearing full armor. Against all odds, he survived the fall, swam across the raging river and reached the far bank, alive. When he looked back, Genghis Khan himself stood at the cliff, watching him escape. The great Khan reportedly told his sons, "A son should be like that," acknowledging Jalal ad-Din's courage even as he vowed to kill him. For the next 10 years, Jalal ad-Din wandered from court to court, trying to raise new armies, but never again reaching the strength he had at Parwan. In 1231, Mongol scouts finally found him, and he was killed in a minor skirmish in Kurdistan. With Jalal ad-Din's death, his revolutionary dismounted archer tactic disappeared with him. He had discovered a practical way to counter the Mongols: stable infantry, disciplined archery, and fresh cavalry reserves. But no one lived to spread his method. The cruel irony is that Jalal ad-Din's greatest victory sealed his fate. By defeating the Mongols, he guaranteed that Genghis Khan would hunt him without mercy. The victory at Parwan made him a symbol of hope, and a threat Genghis Khan could never ignore. The Mongol Empire depended on the fear of invincibility, and Jalal ad-Din had shattered that illusion. Genghis Khan's revenge was absolute. Every city that supported Jalal ad-Din was destroyed so thoroughly that no trace of rebellion remained. Every tribe that sent him warriors was hunted down and wiped from the map. History remembered Jalal ad-Din not for his brilliant victory, but for his desperate flight and eventual death. The 30,000 foot archers who once stopped the unstoppable Mongols faded into a forgotten footnote. Their triumph at Parwan was erased by the unstoppable force of Mongol vengeance. Jalal ad-Din had proven the Mongols were not invincible, but proving it sealed his fate. His courage inspired thousands, yet it condemned him to be hunted until the end. And so the man who defeated the Mongols became a wandering legend, admired, feared, and ultimately forgotten. In the end, Jalal ad-Din's victory at Parwan stood not as a turning point in history, but as a brief, brilliant reminder that even the greatest empires can be challenged, and that sometimes the price of defiance is everything. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, you're in the right place. Here at Realms of History, we dive deep into the forgotten battles, the brilliant strategies, and the warriors who changed the world in ways history books often overlook. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another incredible story from the past. Drop a comment below and let me know which historical battle or figure you want us to cover next. Until next time, keep exploring the realms of history.